Ladies and gentlemen, good day and welcome to Federal Mogul Kotse India Limited Q1 FY22 earnings conference call hosted by Perfect Relations Private Limited. As a reminder, all participant lines will be in the listen-only mode, and there will be an opportunity for you to ask questions after the presentation concludes. Should you need assistance during the conference call, please signal an operator by pressing star then 0 on your touchtone phone. Please note that this conference is being recorded. I now hand the conference over to Ms. Mamta Samat from Perfect Relations. Thank you, and over to you, ma'am.
Thank you, Neerav. Good evening, everyone, and thank you for joining us on Federal Mogul Kotse India Limited Q1 FY22 earnings conference call. Today we have with us the senior management represented by Mr. Vinod Kumar Hans, Managing Director, Mr. Manish Chadda, CFO and Finance Director, Dr. Khalid Khan, Director, Legal and Company Secretary. Before we begin, I would like to add that some of the statements to be made in today's discussion may be forward-looking in nature. We will begin the call with a presentation from the management, after which we will have the forum open for interactive Q&A session. I would now request Dr. Khalid Khan to start the presentation. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Mamta. Good evening, everyone. Forward-looking statement. Let's go to the second slide, which is about the company's overview. This company was established in 1954 as a joint venture company, and it is one of the leading manufacturers of automobile components. Company is based in Gurgaon, Haryana, and it is engaged in the manufacture, supply, and distribution of automotive components in India and internationally. So it mainly offers pistons, piston rings, piston pins, valve seats, and valve guides. The company caters to automotive, heavy-duty, motorcycles, energy, industrial, power generation, railway, and defense industries. FMGIL manufactures world-class products at its state-of-the-art manufacturing facilities, which are located at Patiala, Bangalore, and Bhiwadi. The company now operates as a subsidiary of Tenneco Inc. post Tenneco's acquisition of Federal Mogul LLC. The company employs around 5,000 employees, and it has got 3 manufacturing sites, 2 sales offices, and 13 warehouses. It has 30 plus OEM customers. Now let's come to the shareholding pattern, which is as of 31st July 2021. So public shareholding is 25%. Promoters are holding 75%. In the public shareholding, 1.80% is held by mutual funds and 0.13% is held by FIIs and FPIs. Let's go to the next slide. We have on the board of directors 9 directors. 3 directors are independent. Mr. K.N. Subramaniam is the chairman and independent director. And then we have Mr. Sundareshan Pillai, who is also an independent director. And besides these gentlemen, we have Nalini Jolly, who is an independent women director in terms of requirement of the listing agreement and Companies Act. And then we have Mr. Vinod Kumar Hans, who is our managing director, myself, full-time director, legal and company secretary. Mr. Manish Chadda is full-time director, finance and chief financial officer. Then we have Rajesh Sinha, who is the full-time director. Mr. Sumit Kapoor is a director. Mr. Sean Mary is a director. I think that's it from the list of the board of directors. I would now request Mr. Vinod Hans to take it over from here. Mr. Vinod, over to you. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks, Dr. Khalid. A very good afternoon to everyone. We'll quickly go through the presentation, although some of you, most of you, I would say, joined last time, so not many changes. So allow me to go quickly through this. So on slide 6, our competitive strength, our credit rating are long-term A plus and short-term A1 plus. On the R&D center and global edge, we are very happy that we have a very seamless technology transfer, and our R&D center in Bangalore and Bhiwadi, they are they have a direct access, and there is no firewall system on the technology transfers. With respect to supplies, as Dr. Khalid mentioned, we supply to more than 30 odd customers here, and within that customer we are nicely segmented between the different I would say business segment, whether it is passenger vehicle or two-wheeler or commercial or highway, industrial. So we will discuss these in coming slides. So this diversified segment, of course, gives us little bit leveled performance because different segments are behaving a little bit differently in the market. On the liquidity, we still have a pretty good financial liquidity, and on the team aspect, I would say very experienced and stable team we have. On the next slide, on the manufacturing facility, as Dr. Khalid mentioned, all three facilities we have in Punjab, Patiala, Rajasthan, in Bhiwadi, and Karnataka, Bangalore. So all these facilities are certified to IATF 16949 quality standard, ISO 14001 standard, and ISO 45001 standards. With respect to the OEM market position on the next slide, we have a leadership position in piston ring and seats and guides. I would say significantly better than number 2 player. In pistons, we are overall number 2. However, when we strip out between the fuel category in diesel, we are number 1, but overall number 2 in pistons. On the next slide, on the revenue mix, nearly 14% of our export, 14% of our revenue is coming from export and 86% from domestic. Having said this, in this quarter, the needle moved a little bit more towards export side. So we did 15%, and this needle, we believe that will continue to move forward, and we are looking to increase our export pie overall in the business. And there will be some significant event maybe next year, which we'll discuss during the Q&A sessions. With respect to revenue split by segment, as I mentioned, that we are nicely split it into the segment. So in passenger vehicle and light commercial vehicle, we have exposure of nearly 1/3, 36%. On a two-wheeler, we have an exposure of about 1/4, 24%. Commercial vehicle trucks, 12%, and rest of the segment, which is tractor, energy, and industrial or highway, so which is nearly 28%. So if you have to see how we are segmented vis-a-vis the electrification challenge which we reference. So 2 ways to look into that. If you see from a segment perspective, 40% of our business, which is industrial off-highway and also commercial vehicle, is largely insulated from electrification. Having said that, there will be in commercial vehicle a small portion of the city buses which will go on for electrification. And within the remaining 60% of the business, I would say into the cities, again, roughly about, I would say 2/3 of that business will have a more tendency to get electrified rather than the rural, where we use a lot of what you call a light commercial vehicle up to 2.5 tons. On the next slide, this again, we showed in last call also that there is overall a drive from the customer to look at better fuel economy and low emission guided by the government, and durability again, I would say, more from expectation from customer point of view. And in all the three solutions or these drivers of the new engines, we have a role to play. So our components, whether piston rings, or seats and guides, are nicely answering all these three drivers, which are driving the evolution for new engines. On slide 11, this is more on the focus side, and Manish will discuss more during the Q&A session. But our focus is of course to reduce operational cost. We are working on a lower capital intensity options, and again some of this we'll discuss during the Q&A session. And of course we are looking at the growth opportunities where we are looking at, for example, a new emission norms coming in, which will give us another push. Increase the popularity of turbo engines is another, I would say, area which is pretty good for us for growth. And within electrification, transition route, a mild hybrid vehicle is again offer us huge growth opportunity, because our revenue content in hybrid vehicles goes up. Having said that, for a short-term basis, our I would say number one priority on the financial perspective is on the commodity inflation recoveries from our customers, as well as some of these recoveries we are passing on in terms of price increase to our end user in the aftermarket. On the next slide, slide 12, again on electrification, this is slide from CRESIL. So the idea of showing this slide is when we are discussing about electrification, so except for a battery electrified vehicle, which is on the right hand side, which is using only electric motor as a propulsion system, is a threat to us. But all other forms, which are micro hybrids or mild hybrids or plug-in hybrids, they all use internal combustion engines, and we have a full participation into all these variants, except for pure battery electric vehicles. So with that, I will hand over to Manish Chadha, our CFO, to run you through the financials. Over to you, Manish.
Thank you, Vinod. Good evening, everyone. So I think let us go through straight to the financial results for quarter ended June 2021. Our total revenue for this quarter is 3,207 INR million, which is 230% better than the previous year corresponding quarter, as well as and it is 15% lower from the previous quarter, which is March 21 quarter. We are down by 15% on the previous quarter, March 21, but the market, we are better than the market. Industry was down from the previous quarter maybe by 20-25%, and it has an impact of COVID even in the current quarter, June quarter, in April, May period, which we have the OEM lockdown, shutdown during that period. Our operational EBITDA is 11% in the current quarter as compared to the previous year, minus 38.3. Previous year is not comparable because last year in the same quarter we were having serious lockdowns and plant shutdowns during that last year. But at the same time, we have done good in this current year and with operational EBITDA of 11%. Previous quarter we were 16%. Again, we in the current quarter we are disturbed by the activity level because of the COVID. second wave. So results are affected by that. But we have done better than the industry in the top line, as well as we have done operational EBITDA of 11%, which has some impact of material cost increase and time lag of recovery from the customer. In the subsequent slide, you can see the graphical information. The revenue is up by 230% from the previous year and 15% lower. And you can clearly see the operational EBITDA minus 38% to 11% positive this year, and from the previous quarter, March 21, 5% to 11%. If we split one off, we are from 16 to 11%. EPS continues to improve in the current quarter with the volume coming in. We have started generating significant profitability on that, and profit before tax is 4% as against minus 1% and minus 53% in the last year. And PAT is also affected with the positive profitability. On the financial result overview, high points, if you see, as I mentioned, revenue of INR 3,207 million. Revenue growth from the corresponding quarter year 230%, and last year, as I already mentioned, it has impact of COVID. And from the previous quarter, March 21, we are down by 15%, whereas market is down by 20-25%. We have done better in both OEM as well as export. Vinod already mentioned about that. Operational performance, we have already discussed that we are 11% as against minus 38% from the previous year. The net profit after tax is 100 million for this quarter, and the cash generated 106 million for the quarter, and which Vinod has run you through our key initiatives slide, where working capital as mentioned, and also lower capital intensity. So I think it is a result of all the effort we are generating cash, and the total cash availability is 1,402 million by the end of the quarter one. So from customer award and recognition, we have won the award from Fiat, Best Supplier Quality Award and Good Quality Performance in 2020, Mahindra & Mahindra, and also General Motors. So we have these awards and recognition from the customer. Maybe I will hand it over to Khalid Khan, Dr. Khalid Khan, for CSR activities, and he will run it through from that. Dr. Khalid Khan.
Thank you, Manish. So during the quarter, we worked on our CSR projects, and considering the COVID situation, I think it was a priority also. So Bangalore plant created 10-bed ICU ward by contributing 2 ventilators and 10 electrical digital medical beds at Railway Wheel Factory Hospital. And this is going to benefit 18,000 members of the community in and around Yelahanka, where we have our plant. In addition to this initiative, the company, in collaboration with another local biotech company, erected an oxygen generating plant at Bhiwadi, which is capable of providing 24-hour oxygen to 35-bed CHC. So these are the major initiatives undertaken by the company relating to CSR projects. Thank you so much. Over to Ashish and Mamta.
So shall we open the floor for questions? Thank you very much. We'll now begin the question and answer session. Anyone who wishes to ask a question may press star and 1 on their touchtone telephone. If you wish to remove yourself from the question queue, you may press star and 2. Participants are requested to use handsets while asking a question. Ladies and gentlemen, we will wait for a moment while the question queue assembles. Participants, you may press star and 1 to ask a question. The first question is from the line of Saket Kapoor from Kapoor and Company. Please go ahead.
Yeah, Dhanyavad sir for providing me with this opportunity. Sir, if you look in the light of the second COVID wave that was at its peak during the first quarter, in light of that, if you could explain how our numbers and the utilization levels have shaped up for the quarter, that would give us some more color.
Thank you. I think I will take this question. This is Manish. I will take this question. So as I mentioned, and your question is also that there was a COVID impact during this current quarter. So I think our capacity utilization is somewhere around between 70 to 90% in the different value stream. I think that should, so we have almost, I would say, average 75 to 80% capacity utilization.
Right, sir. And so
if I just
please
add on, since you asked how did we do about the industry, so the number, we have from the industry is, for example, if you take a passenger car or utility vehicle and roll up it together, and we are comparing, quarter to quarter basis because last quarter is not a right quarter to compare. So we see overall, a drop of 26%, of course, related to shutdown, and some of this was the semiconductors, and the commercial vehicle was further impacted, being a heavy consumer of season. So they were dropped. The trucks had a drop of 52% on a quarter-to-quarter basis, and a two-wheeler, three-wheeler combination was nearly 35%. Tractor was one, segment where the drop was minimum, but it was still at minus 16%. So just to give you a flavor, if you really put our numbers together and go for these kind of exposure, so the overall industry, the way we are, exposed was down by more than 30%, actually 31, 32%. So against that, our drop is 15%. So that's a pretty good, I would say, performance from our perspective, because we continue to map this vis-a-vis the industry. Having said that, of course, we have our own aftermarket and export business, which is, it saves us from this kind of, I would say, fluctuation. So even if we strip out those numbers, we still perform better than the industry. I hope that answers the question.
Sir, since our business is totally based, I think most probably related to the OEM part of their production lineup. So they also took outages because of the COVID being very relevant in that quarter. So how are things shaping up going ahead, and what is the outlook from your OEM partners?
So on a high level, if you see the outlook, say for this quarter, we are already 7 weeks into this quarter. If you have to put a very high level numbers, this quarter is, from a demand perspective, which we have, from our customers, is really, nearly 85 to 90% of the first quarter, means which was January to March quarter for this year, which was the peak. So the market has recovered, I would say, somewhere between 85 to 90%. However, our OEM continues to claim that the end demand, at least in the light vehicle and tractors, is much more, and they are not able to produce because of the semiconductor shortages. So that's now a supply chain bottleneck coming in, at least mostly on the passenger vehicle side. The two-wheeler, is by and large, from an overall demand perspective, is pretty much muted. I would say it is not reviving the way the passenger car or the tractor have revived, which are operating nearly 90% plus level of the best quarter in this 2021.
So if we take this raw material to our revenue percentage, that has remained constant. So did we took any price hike because of the inflationary trends in the commodity? And sir, if we take your raw material basket, if you could give the split up between and out of the total revenue, how much is after sales that is controlled? I think so that would have a higher margins in compared to the other components.
So let me.
I will ask Manish to answer.
So thanks, Vinod. So you have rightly pointed out that raw material prices are up from the previous year in the double digit, and we can see that impact in the profitability also. And we do have a contract with OEM customers for material escalation, and it has time lag for recovery from the customer. For example, we have recovered 20-30% for raw material price increase in the current quarter, and then we have a time lag of 6 months to 1 year, but we will recover say 80-90% of raw material price increase from the customers. Aftermarket, we have increased prices from the last year by 5 to 6% from the previous year, and we are we are looking into the market how it's behaving, and it will continue to increase to recover the prices from the end customer. As regards export and aftermarket sale, it is 1/3 of total FMG revenue, and aftermarket sale is somewhere around 16 to 17% of the total revenue.
Right, sir. And very two small points. Sir, firstly on the capex, what has been the capex planned for this year, and if you could give us some understanding how the cash flow has been for this quarter, and I'll come in the queue.
So capex, we are going to spend put substantial capex in the current year with the market growing, and overall, as Vinod was mentioning, market is shaping up, and we can see the market overall growth between 15 to 20% from the previous year if the things remain stable. COVID third wave is a risk, and then semiconductor, is another challenge. But if everything remains good, then I think we are expecting market to grow between 15 to 20%. And our capex would be better than the previous 2 years, and we are also adding capacities. And Vinod was mentioning in the export side that we are bringing the business to OEM, which has export also from here. So we are adding capacities also in that perspective in the global business for the OEMs, and the CapEx amount should be better than the last 2 years. Will be substantially better than the last 2 years.
So could you quantify for the benefit of us, of your investors, what is the amount and what is the percentage by which the capacity would be enhanced, and when would that get commercialized?
So if you ask me, the capex amount would be somewhere around between 80 to 90 crore rupees, right? And that's what we are planning. And then for the capacity point of view, in that capacity value, the volume will come in the full year, maybe by 22, 23, and some portion in 2024. But we are talking about somewhere around 8 to 9% of the capacity increase.
Thank you very much. Saket Kapoor, I'll request you to come back in the question queue for a follow-up question. The next question is from the line of Lakshmi Narayan from ICICI Prudential Mutual Fund. Please go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. A couple of questions. How strong is the order book for two-wheelers for us? Do we have visibility for the next 3-4 years? How does it work?
So our understanding is overall, we see that in next 3 to 4 years, the ICE engine motorcycles will remain flat, or maybe they will grow by 2 or 3%. And overall, there will be a growth, of course. in the two-wheeler segment, but the growth will be, taken over by the electric bikes actually. So just to give you a ballpark figure, say about we are talking anything between 23 or 24 million kind of markets between two and three-wheeler. And at the moment, between the several electric players, we see a capacity generation of about 3 to maybe 4 million. That's the visibility we have.
Sorry, sir, I didn't get. There is some background noise. I couldn't gather you, sir. Can you
So when we talk about the electric bike capacity, and when we talk to our customers and others, so we see a capacity of roughly about 3 to 4 million of two-wheeler in the electric category, which means in next I would say till 2025 there could be about 3 to 4 million of the total bike getting electrified, which is roughly about 15% of the market. I don't know whether that answers the question.
Okay. Now, when you are putting capacity, it is how fungible it is between the various types, or how does one understand that? Because you have multiple products and multiple categories, right?
So over last few years, we have been careful that to give a broad idea that the capacity is completely fungible between today a gasoline piston for a two-wheeler, three-wheeler, or a passenger car. Okay, so that's where we thought that we are not. I mean, it's not a big difference, so that our capacities are not dedicated to a particular segment. So that has been our effort. Similarly, on the other side, with Euro 6, norm coming in, and thanks to these type of vehicles like cars or safaris, and which is 2 liter plus kind of categories. So we are trying to see the commercial vehicle and a tractor kind of segment. They can be fungible, So this is how we are trying to, I would say, resetting our capacities there, so that if there is a, I would say, a tractor and I would say commercial vehicle behave, in a different manner, our capacities are taken care of that.
Got it. So on the two-wheeler, you're saying that at least that the current volume, which will translate to your order book, will be maintained at least for the next 3 years. There won't be any drop in in orders from two-wheelers for 24%.
Yeah, that's what we estimate, that there will not be any growth in this category for us, by and large. While we say that, I have to be also, we find that with this new bike coming in, we are entering new customers also. So we have added, two customers of two-wheeler whom we were not supplying, and happily, they have chosen us for their export model. So we are trying to, I would say, within that market, at least expand our base with customers, at least on the high end of the motorcycle, so that our
So did I hear it right? So did I hear that you added 2 new customers in two-wheelers last quarter? Did I hear that?
That's right.
Okay. Sir, and how seasonal are your quarters, like Q1, Q2, Q3, Q4, right? In general, in a steady state, right? How seasonal it is?
So I don't know. I mean, with this last 7 or 8 quarters, we have lost the sense of season. But by and large, we have seen that the quarter of January to March is always the best, and a quarter which is typically typical, September, October, November time, that zone where there's a festival season. So that is also very close. And I would say April to June quarter normally is the lowest quarter.
Okay. And you could get only 80 to 90% of the price escalation, that too, prolonged over a period of a year, right? Is it always the case that you can actually catch up only 80 to 90% of the price raw material increase? And why is it so prolonged in general? Like 1 year is too long, right? And of course, during the time when the prices may also come down. So how do you handle this volatility, and why are you unable to capture the entire raw material increase?
So historically, we're trying to improve this contract. First of all, so if I have to take a scenario which is 4 or 5 years back, only 60% of the business, we were doing with OEM were put into escalator. Today, our nearly 80% of the business is hedged up with our customers.
You are not audible, sir.
Yeah. Is it better now?
Yeah, it is better.
So, sorry, I will repeat then. So I was saying that if you take a scenario 4 years, 5 years back, our 60% business was, I would say, hedged through escalator with our customers. So today that figure is about 80 to 90%. However, the customers, we have this cycle, either a 6-month or a 12-month. So some of the customers, we have a 6-month cycle. For example, from 1st of April, a new price will kick in, and then 1st of October, the new price will kick in. But in some of the customers, we have a little prolonged, escalator, say 1st of April every year or 1st of October every year. We are making an effort to reach out to the customers because this window is pretty long vis-a-vis the fluctuation in the market we are seeing. So in some cases, customers are, of course, agreeing for adjusting this cycle little earlier, and that is what we are making an effort with. But your question is valid. With the kind of fluctuation in the market, a 6 months to 1 year contract is pretty much long.
And what are you? Because I hear that a lot of companies are doing a lot of conversations and getting to customer, making them understand, and what efforts you are taking in to ensure that this is a one-off and then this elongation of 1 year is compressed. Are you? I'm sure you're doing it. Can you just elaborate a bit on that?
So I think it's a little bit, I would say, persuasion process, and we have been able to make inroads with some of the customers, strategic customers, where we have been able to push and get the cycle curtailed down. Secondly, there are other, I would say, low-hanging fruit with respect to some of the other methods where these contracts take change, take a little bit time. For example, how do we get a tooling recovery? So there are other levers where customers are giving some kind of relief while we write down, while we revisit, I would say, these cases. If we compare, for example, with a typical a sheet metal-based supplier, of course, the kind of fluctuation and kind of exposure, typical these kind of companies are nearly 70% material cost. So for them, the OEMs have gone ahead and gone for a quarterly, even in few cases where the steel is extensively used, even a 6-week cycle. So I have to admit that we are somehow, in the second group. So once this group gets addressed with the escalator, so the customer will take us into the second round. So that's how customers are picking up. I would say the group of suppliers in that case. Because they still believe that our exposure to this commodity is less severe than some of the other, as I mentioned. But having said that, again, not to repeat, once we have these kind of suppliers getting adjusted to down one, there is no reason why should we not get a priority in the second half.
Okay. Thank you. I'll come back in queue, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Jatan Naik from ICICI Mutual Fund. Please go ahead.
Yeah. Hi, sir. Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. Sir, my first question was, out of this 24% of two-wheeler, three-wheeler segmentation of revenue, which you've indicated in a presentation, how much is domestic and how much is export, sir?
So, I mean, I will try to answer in a different way. Out of this 24% exposure, we have a pretty good exposure in the aftermarket. Out of this 24%, okay. Say our aftermarket business is coming 70% from a two-wheeler side. So the total 60% of the aftermarket business, Manish mentioned, within that 70% is coming from the two-wheeler. So I hope that answers your question, that we are not in a stress mode within that. And within that 24%, I would say about 5 to 8% is via export.
Okay. And sir, you indicated that you acquired 2 new OEMs. I mean, are they Indian OEMs for the export markets or?
No, they are Indian. They are Indian OEMs.
They're Indian OEMs and you've got new orders from them for the bikes which they export.
Correct. I mean, of course, they will make it domestic also, but this is intended for export.
Okay. So after the acquisition of these 2 OEMs as your clients now, are you catering to all OEMs on the two-wheeler side?
So if you see in our slide, which we have mentioned the customers, the last slide. So I don't know if there's any other two-wheeler manufacturer who is left whom we are not supplying. So you have to.
Sure. So sir, with after actually seeing ramp up with the new OEMs which you've acquired in this quarter, yet you expect that over the next 3 to 4 years, your two-wheeler segment will not grow because of electric bikes actually picking up.
That's right.
Okay. Also, sir, next question was the capex which you've indicated 80 to 90 crores. Which segment? I mean, this capex is predominantly going to come in. Which category? I mean, is it for which customer class?
Manish, would you take this question?
So yeah, thanks. So this capex is mainly in LV and commercial. So we are talking more on Ford and Puma. This is a global customer.
Okay. So next, is there any other new products or something in addition to piston rings, valve seats and guides which we made? Any new products that we are working on which could probably come up and increase our content which we offer either in the aftermarket or to the OEM side?
No, there's no plan to diversify into a new product category.
Sure. And just one last question from my side. On the domestic OEM side, you said even if you exclude aftermarkets and exports, you've done better than the industry. Can you give some color, which segment you've done better? Is there some new model or something which has come exclusively to you, or any other more color on your market share gain for the quarter?
So I would say a larger gain is coming, from you might have seen some of the OEMs. Not be fair on my part to pinpoint particular model, but you can see there's a lot of I would say excitement with some of the new models where the waiting time as per some of our customers is about 8, 9, 10 months. and some of these models are doing pretty good. They claim there are disruptions, and we are participating very nicely in these models. And of course, most of the Euro 6 as it is progressing is bringing, I would say, additional market share to us.
Okay.
So,
thank you.
Fortunately, just to give you a reference, that although if you take a 6 months prior view, the diesel was going really down and out, but now suddenly if you see the current I would say portfolio, you will see these vehicles are bang on. I mean, coming back, and whether you name Toyota Innova, or you're referring to Harrier or Safaris or MG Hector or Thars and those kind of vehicles which are pretty much there on the wait list, and all of them are diesel, by the way. So frankly, we were not expecting such a I would say good shift, and most of these vehicles are running only on diesel, and this is bringing a lot of benefit to us when we claim that we have done better than the market. They are sitting on the higher side end of the passenger car market, and B, the content value of the diesel is more, and that's you see our revenue significantly better. I should not say better. The drop in revenue from a quarter to quarter is much lower than the industry when you talk about the numbers. I hope I'm able to explain that.
Sure. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Participants, you may press star and one to ask a question. The next question is from the line of Shreyansh Mehta from Sri Capital Service. Please go ahead.
Hi, thanks for taking my question. So a couple of them, if you can kindly help me. I heard that you have a capex plan of about 70-80 crores coming up over the next 2 years. Can you give some understanding about which of the three manufacturing facilities that we have, where what amount is likely to be spent out of this capex?
So basically, what I mentioned, 70 to 80 crore for this current year, and it is in both the location, Patiala and Bangalore, for piston and piston rings. Major contributes for this product.
Okay, and if you can also help me for understanding what percentage of our revenue comes from which of these three manufacturing locations in some kind of share. Can you give some broad understanding, please?
So maybe I will answer. So we have two products, piston and piston ring, which is combined, and we have valve seats and guides. So in the total business, valve seats and guides is 12%, and piston rings is almost 88% of the total revenue. I hope.
Yes. That definitely is helpful. But if you want to bifurcate the revenue from manufacturing locations perspective, so
all this, let me answer this. All the 12% which Manish mentioned is coming from Bhiwadi, which is a dedicated for seats and guide business, and the remaining 88% is I think evenly split it between Patiala and Bangalore.
Okay. And about cash that we have on balance sheet, you mentioned that it's about 142 crores as on end of this quarter, and you have some capex coming up. Any understanding about dividend payments which will start happening to the shareholders in coming times?
So let me take this question, sir. So we have this cash available, but at the same time, as I mentioned, we have to spend 80 crore rupees, almost 70-80 crore rupees of capex, and also we have the growth opportunities which we are talking about 15 to 20% for the current year, and also there was COVID uncertainty. So For this year, as of now, we have the short-term requirement of the cash, and in the short-term time, we are not looking into the dividend, but at the same time, on a longer picture, though we want to preserve cash for any opportunities which is coming from changing environmental norms, and we know talk about this turbo-loaded engine and all. But at the same time, we are reviewing our dividend situation based on the situation we are in. So as of now, 22, 23, 21, 22, we have this growth opportunities, or even top line, we see growth should be 15 to 20%, and we have capex involved into this. But at the same time, we are reviewing the dividend strategy with the available cash.
I understand. Did I get it right when you say 15 to 20% growth? That is the top line which you are talking about, and will that result in equivalent upside in the bottom line, or will that be much more?
So this 15 and 20% growth is the opportunities depending on the COVID, because we hear about third wave and all those disturbance, which is a risk. But at the same time, and we are talking about the top line growth. On the bottom line growth, we already discussed about this MCS portion where we have 6 months to 1 year contractual time lag, which we are trying to expedite, and we will have the recovery maybe in the next year for this escalators, right? So to that extent, that will be a challenge. But on the other hand, we are continuously working on working capital, fixed cost reduction and all. So we are striving for that, but I think the risk is this MCS recovery for this 15 to 20% growth.
I understand. Just last question, if you can kindly help. There have been on and off, discussion, not exactly at the company level, but in the media and all, that there may be some kind of consolidation of operations from these manufacturing facilities at different places. And there may also be some kind of monetization of some surplus land, etc. in Bengaluru. Any understanding? Can you share anything on this, please?
We have absolutely no idea about that, and there is no plan as such from the company side on all those things which we have already mentioned.
Right, fine. Thank you so much. Wishing you best.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Nitin Gandhi from KIFS Trade Capital. Please go ahead.
Yeah, thanks for taking my question. In continuation of previous discussion, do we see any threat for maintaining 11% EBITDA margin for 20% growth which we are envisaging this year? And how is this quarter one? Is it generally 20-22% of the whole year, or it's less than?
So let me take this question. So as if you see, Vinod did mention that last 7 to 8 quarters, because of the COVID, we were not talking about seasonality, but on a general, April to June is always a lower quarter as compared to full year. And so for this year trend, yes, I think 22 to 23% is the number, and we are talking about the 15 to 20% growth over last year. So you're right, it is 20 to 23%. And maintaining 11% profitability, we don't see challenge if we achieve this volume which we are talking about. In the current quarter also, we have the time lag of recovery. So I think if we will achieve this volume, we will definitely strive for better EBITDA with the action Vinod did mention, but we don't see 11% is a challenge considering the efforts and the volume which we are talking about.
So you will keep generating a significant cash flow. So in fact, if you see out of whatever cash on hand, you don't need, because you will be generating approximately 150 crore cash flow for FY23 also.
So as I mentioned, if you see our cash generation is mainly, we are focusing more on working capital reduction, which means inventory reduction, vendor days increase or data. So I think we have reached up to the level of inventory, minimum inventory, And at the same time, now I'm talking about 15 to 20% volume growth for year 21-22, and also we are talking about capex of almost 80 crore. So that's why we are saying this year we would see, now for the next 9 months, we would see increase in working capital. So I think the next 9 months we would not be generating as much as cash. We will be generating cash from the business, but at the same time there will be investment.
No, that's what I'm saying. So whatever cash you are generating over next 9 months are sufficient enough to meet your capex. So existing cash will, anyway, you will continue end of every quarter to be maintaining 125, 140 crores cash.
So that's what I said. We want to be more cautious in this current financial year. We have uncertainties of COVID and all, where we have not still country or globally or worldwide we have not passed through. We want to ensure there should not be any uncertainties in the business. We should have sufficient cash. We have opportunity to become a global presence in India for this business is shifting to India, global business, and we want to ensure that we would be the first choice with our financial viabilities, and we would be able to make handle all the situation in these uncertainties. And as I already mentioned, after this 1 year, definitely we are looking for our dividend policy with the surplus cash. That's what I did mention in my earlier communication.
No issues. So, barring COVID uncertainty, there are nothing big plans or anything. Is there something which Tenneco is likely to help us because of outsourcing, that advantage of India manufacturing? Something can you share on that? If anything is happening.
Maybe I will give it to Vinod for this.
So just answering your question, Manish kept on mentioning about the working capital and also preparation for some of the global business getting shifted here. So I have to qualify that larger arrangement with our global customer is say for example if you are making engine here, so a lot of production base will shift from Europe to here. So we are going into a kind of I would say 4-party discussions like the one party is of course that way, another the local global customer here, and then the global headquarter of customer and our current production base in those countries. So obviously there's a transition process into that, and it's a 4-party arrangement, and largely there's a conversion that India is able to get the confidence, particularly with the Euro 6 experience coming in, and the products getting made here are now at the same global acceptance level. So, and then this transition we'll see in the phase 1 and phase 2, maybe even higher, which Manish mentioned for 23-24. So I would say our larger capex is directly towards rearranging the whole global footprint. So, and for that we have to I would say keep the cash should it not become a bottleneck. Secondly, even if you talk about the domestic markets, we are pretty much excited about the way the post-COVID the whole market has shifted, say for example from a 10 lakh car to about 18 to 20 lakh cars. We never imagined that this will happen. Similarly, we are also excited on a commercial truck also. Typically, for example, a 6-liter plus engine truck is getting more traction today than what even the OEM will imagine. So all this is also good news for us actually overall.
Thank you very much. All the best.
Thank you.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Lakshmi Narayan from ICICI Mutual Fund. Please go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. Again, so if I just look at your profitability, right, and if I just go back to FY18, FY19, etc., your first quarter gross margins were higher in FY20 or even in FY19, and of course the EBITDA margin also consequently was higher. So can you just help us understand as to what is the band of margins you like to operate, and whether as an organization you focus on conversion margin or gross margin or EBITDA margin, and what band you want to actually focus, and how do you measure your outperformance, etc. I mean, just want to understand how the firm looks at margin bands and which margin you actually take into consideration.
No, thanks for your question. So you're right. If you talk about 18-19, our margins were somewhere around 15 to 16%. It has actually mainly driven by the volumes. So first of all, we were not in the volume where we were in 18-19, and with this current year growth which we are talking about, I think we will be at the level of 18-19 of volume, which if everything goes well and the market forecast which we are looking for. Having said that, we are monitoring ourselves more in EBITDA percentage, and we are hardly having any interest. So we monitor our operational profitability and also look into the SG&A separately. So from ideally we would like to have this 15 to 16% of EBITDA, which we were achieving in 18-19. 14-15 we were achieving. So now actually the major delta, if you see, is this MCS cost, which is gone up by double digits. I'm saying double digit, but it is somewhere around 30 to 35% increase from the previous year.
Material cost, right?
Yeah, material cost increase.
Okay.
So, and we have already mentioned that we will be recovering in overall year-to-year basis 80-90% of the total material cost increase, but not be in this year. Some portion there will be time lag to the next year. And over and above, we are adding operational, productivity into this. So answering your question in a perfect word, yes, we are striving for 15 to 16%, but it has different elements in that. One is definitely the activity level, volumes, which are major portion where you can absorb your fixed cost. And even during COVID period, we have gone through, look into our fixed cost, and we have reduced that, and it is a continuous exercise for us. The another thing is this material cost increase, which is very substantial from the previous year, even for 18-19 perspective. And we have a recovery plan. And we also have to keep in mind, there was a question on 80-90% recovery. We have 1/3 of the business is export and aftermarket, where the recovery is market, though we are, increase the prices, but it will not be one-to-one with raw material prices. It has to also look into the market sentiments. So answering your question, yes, we monitor our performance EBITDA percentage, and ideally we would be in the range of 15 to 16%, depending on the volume, as well as now the challenge for this year is the material cost available.
Thank you so much for elaborate answer.
I'll just add to this, to keep out only this quarter, out of 13 weeks, really we have to close down our plant by on an average 10 days actually. So when this happens, although for a overall quarter you may see the drop is 15%, but during those 10 days, we are not able to get the efficiency. So imagine that for 10 days we are not able to flex the accounts, we are not able to flex the salary, and then there is a restart and other costs related.
Sorry, your voice is not clear, sir. Can you just repeat it, the last 2 or 3 sentences?
So what I was trying to say, during these last quarter, we have to also consider that out of 13 weeks, we also had nearly 7 to 10 days of a shutdown.
Okay.
So when a shutdown happens, it brings a different type of costs which are not recovered. For example, during those 10 days, we did not reduce salaries of our people. So during those 10 days, the whole shutdown and restart of the furnaces and all, it has its own cost actually.
Got it.
So I would say yes, the material was a larger portion, where we were not able to achieve the number which Manish mentioned, 16%. But also for this quarter, we were hit by 7 to 10 days of operation where we could not recover our fixed cost actually. So had it been average 15% every day, running operation, and then probably the results would have been a little different. But imagine that we have a nearly week to 10 days zero activity. I don't know whether I'm able to explain this actually.
No, that's very helpful. So that last quarter we took a provision in terms of employee retirement. So that is behind us. Is there anything else we need to think about, anything that is going to recur, or that is like completely provisioned for?
Khalid?
Yeah, I think we have already created the required provision for that. Yeah.
So there is nothing additional that will come later on, right?
Yeah, we are not envisaging anything additional.
Got it. And in terms of your export, right, can you just help us understand how is the order book? What is the mix of the exports between various categories of vehicles, and or I mean, is it you're supplying to the OEM directly, or you're supplying to your group companies? Where it gets fitted in, and how strong is the order book? And you're also talking about expanding your capacity for the sake of exports, right? So can you just delve a bit deeper on the exports on these fronts? It will be helpful. Thank you.
So if I have to answer, basically it is in all the category which you referred to. I would say predominantly, it is an even split between shipping direct to the OEM export customer or giving to our intercompany for onward shipping. For example, we have units in Thailand.
Sorry to interrupt, you're sounding a little distant from the phone.
Is it better now?
Yeah.
So for example, we do have a setup in Thailand where our Thai company will take material from us and they will assemble and they will do a local JIT supplies to some of these pickup trucks manufacturers. With that, I'm giving you an idea of which category we are talking about. We are talking about 2.5 liter to 3 liter kind of those pickup truck and those kind of engines. I would say that constitutes a significant portion of that. Another significant portion is we supply to our aftermarket in US, which are, I would say, a mid-size engines. And we also export pretty much a two-wheeler kind of piston, which I remember I mentioned in 5 to 8% of that two-wheeler category, which I mentioned in the earlier question. So even those small pistons are also going to directly to the customer in Europe and US. So answering your question is pretty much spread between I would say aftermarket in America, two-wheeler type of pistons in Europe, also kind of 2.5 to 3 liter engine. And having said that, we also do export to some of our global tractor manufacturers also.
Got it.
So it's pretty much widely spread across the segment.
So when you say exports is around for 15%, right? In that 15%, almost half of half of it is actually two-wheeler related exports.
No,
around 5.
I would say 80% of that export is on the higher side of engines actually.
Okay. Okay. So the balance is essentially two-wheelers. Maybe 20% of your exports is two-wheelers.
Maybe less, even less.
Okay. And how large is your tractor portfolio?
So tractor overall is roughly about 12 or 13% of our business, and we are supplying to almost to the making a tractor.
Okay. Okay. Thank you, sir. This is very helpful.
Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, that would be the last question for today. On behalf of Federal Mogul Godse India Limited, that concludes this conference. Thank you for joining us. You may now disconnect your line. Thank you.